With thanks to the City of BRIMBANK across our neighbourhood and the world, the Sports Hour with Max Hatzoglou on BRIMBANK Live on Live FM.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Hour on BRIMBANK Live on Live FM. Great to have your company. I'm your host, Max Hatzoglou. We've got a big show coming up today. We got Charlie Gill coming on to talk a little bit about the AFL season. We also got Patrick Morrow on, who's going to talk a little bit about the world of cricket and what's happening there. Then we're also going to get Connor Kennedy on, who's going to talk a little bit about sleep and the importance of it. So we're looking forward to hearing from him, a nutrition coach and a personal trainer. So look forward to that, and we look forward to the show. The AFL season is 10 days away. I cannot believe how quickly it's come around, and there's no better person than football expert Charlie Gill to come onto the show to talk a little bit about it. Welcome, Charlie, to the Sports Hour. How you going?
Good, thanks, Max. Great to be here as always.
Charlie, today we want to go through the riser, the slider, and the premier for this AFL season.
Mm-hmm.
Kicking it off with the riser, can you tell us who you think's going to make the rise up this season in 2021?
My riser is Melbourne. The reason it's Melbourne is because I think that the midfield of Petrarca, Brayshaw, Oliver and Gawn is so good that it's not like they don't have a ninth place midfield. They have a midfield that's, a top four midfield. It's one of the best midfields in the competition. And the thing about Melbourne is that, it feels like they should be up there. And I've always said that Melbourne must be the hardest team in the competition to support because they were so bad for so long. They were so bad. And then they got good. And then they made a preliminary final. They got smashed, but it's like, okay, at least they made a prelim. That's a good step. The next step is making the grand final. And then they just got bad again. And it was sort of like mind-blowing, so disappointing for those fans who thought that finally it was time for, a little bit of success. Instead, they've just dropped straight back down. But Petrarca's improved. Oliver, I think, has something to prove. There were lots of rumours about him not being happy at Melbourne. And while that could have the effect of, detracting from Melbourne's performance, I think it might add to it because I think that he's the sort of player that would like using sort of negative energy as motivation, if you know what I mean. When it comes to the other positions on the ground, their forward line isn't amazing. Neither is their back line, but they do have May and Lever. So I think that they're actually relatively consistent across all parts of the ground. The question is whether the problem with Melbourne was never its players at all, but was actually its coach. Because Goodwin came in, and I think he took them to that prelim. And then someone's going to have to fact check that. And then after that, they just suddenly got bad. And it was sort of like, why? And this is Goodwin's last year, I think. I think that everyone knows that. I think maybe even the president of the administration said that if they didn't make finals, that there was going to be consequences. I think maybe even Goodwin said that. Again, a fact checker needs to fact check that.
That's true.
But yeah, so
that's interesting.
The question is the coaching, I suppose, because I just don't think the players are ever a problem. And you hate to place all the blame on Goodwin, but it's sort of like it's hard sort of not to. And I think that if they don't make finals this year, then yeah, Goodwin's definitely got to go because I think they've got a good enough team to make finals. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that's why. And I'm sort of not actually saying right now why I think that they're going to rise. I'm just sort of talking about why the questions surrounding them. But the reason I think that they are going to rise is because it's an element of that that idea of sort of sticking with the coach, which you saw Richmond do, obviously, to their benefit with Hardwick, which you saw Buckley do to their benefit as well. I mean, you haven't won a premiership, but you got 6 points away from winning a premiership. Yeah. So there's two sort of coaches like that this year in Leon Cameron and in Goodwin. If, they pay back their clubs by sort of overseeing the improvement of their team, then that's something that Richmond and Collingwood did, and I think that it's a good thing to do. And based on sort of that pattern, is why I think that Melbourne will improve, because I think that Goodwin, I think that a lot comes from experience, and that Goodwin will become a better coach this year. Again, I think it's because their midfield is so good. I think Petrarca and Oliver are only going to get better, as is Brayshaw. Just an incredible young midfield. Gordon's obviously a very talented ruckman. And I think that I just think that they're a team that should be playing finals, and I think that this is the year that they're going to get back in there. So that's my riser.
It's interesting. Why do you think that they're going to rise if you think Goodwin, like if you don't think Goodwin's the man for the job? Like, you think they're going to rise even though you think Goodwin isn't the man for the job? Like, if he's going to surely he keeps his job if Melbourne, if they go up into the top 8, they finished 10th last year. You're saying they're your risers, so you'd expect them to finish around 5 or 6, hopefully 7 maybe. But you think that Goodwin will leave?
No, sorry, I didn't really phrase it well at all. What I was saying was that I don't really have any statistics to back this up, but I think that Melbourne sticking with Goodwin will be rewarded by him taking them up this season. And I think they're going to, if he takes them up this season, then obviously he probably is the man for the job, and he will be rewarded with a new contract. I think that for some reason, I just don't feel that it's going to be Goodwin's going to oversee another disastrous season. Well, not disastrous, but another mediocre season for Melbourne, because they should be playing finals, and they're not. I think that this year they're going to play finals, and Goodwin's going to stick around, and I think that them sticking with Goodwin was a good idea. And maybe it might not even matter who's coach, because I think that their players are so good and so capable. And I think they're going to be really motivated.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's supposed to be motivated, but I think Melbourne really have that pressure on them this season that it just can't be another bad season after all that the club and all the fans have been through the past 15 years.
Yeah, and I think it's a good one, Charlie. Melbourne, I definitely think they're going to rise up. They had a few bad games last year where they lost to the Sydney Swans by 21 points in round 15. They lost to Freo in round 16, and then they beat the Giants only by 5 points in the following round. But I think, looking at their other games, they had a pretty promising season last year, and I think you're right. I think they're gonna be a nice little riser for this year, and they're gonna take a team out of the top 8, and we'll get to that when we get to our slider next up. But for me, my riser this year is the mighty Carlton Blues. I know. You're a supporter of them, Charlie, and I know you'll be quite surprised by this, seeing that I'm a Collingwood supporter. But we operate on a level playing field here, and I think Carlton will rise up. They obviously picked up Adam Sard, Williams as well from GWS, and that's quality going into that back line. Quality they certainly need. And looking at their team, it's a pretty good team, to be honest. It looks well spread across the whole ground. You've got quality players. You've got Cripps in the midfield. Paddy Dell, I reckon he's going to step up this year and have a good year. I heard he had a good practice game. Then you've got Harry Mackay up forward. And you've got the great Levi Casbolt, who I saw in the preseason last year when I went down to watch him train. He's a gun. He is a gun. And what were you going to say, sorry?
I was just going to say about Paddy Dow that he played really well in the practice match against Essendon, and then he also played really well last night against St Kilda.
Yeah.
He didn't have like a crazy amount of disposals, not very much, but they were high impact.
Yeah. That's it.
His handball releases were so good. They released plays into space on multiple occasions, and literally, he was the reason that we got the inside 50. The thing about the Blues is that obviously I've got low expectations, as I always do. I mean, I want us to play finals more than anything. I think if we don't play finals and we narrowly miss out, I think Teague keeps his job no matter what. But yeah, finals is the benchmark. But the thing about us is I'm a bit worried. Like, I mean, everyone talks about their own club's injuries, but Kerno's been so disappointing what's happened with him. We've got McKay got injured last night, Mackay, so did Wiedering, so did Nunes. Teague seemed to think they were all going to be fine. But then we've also got Marchbank injured, Kemp injured, a lot of players injured. Newman, we've our injury list isn't very good, and I just really pray that we can, our players can have, can be healthy enough to really go hard at it. Because I do think that we easily can make the top 8 if we're healthy and if we're gelling well. But all I can do is hope.
And that's what I saw last year. I saw a lot of promising signs, and the hope is there now in Carlton supporters like yourself, that they can make the top 8. And you're sitting there right now with a cheeky smirk on your face, aren't you, Charlie? Because Carlton, that talk about top 8 has been heavily spoken about, and I think they're going to get up. And well done on that. And let's hope it happens now. To your slider, who's your slider for the 2021 AFL season?
I sort of struggled thinking of who I was going to choose as a slider because I'm sort of quite nice about it when I look at the team in the last year's ladder. I think, oh no, they're not that bad, and I always give each team the benefit of the doubt. But the slider I've settled on is West Coast. Now, it's not an obvious one.
They did show really bad signs last year.
And I just think that, I haven't read that much about it, but the hub thing might impact them, being in Western Australia with the borders. I'm not even sure if that is a factor or not. I think I read a headline and I've just run with it, to be honest. But I don't know. They're sort of, I think they're a relatively old team. They've got a lot of guns like Barras and McGovern, obviously, and Shuey. Like, they're a good team. But I think they could slide. I think they could maybe just sneak into finals this year. Maybe even finish 9th.
Yeah, well, they finished 5th last year. So I think... I remember last year everyone was talking about how good their midfield is and how they're just going to be such a good team. And I think I had them in my top 4 for predictions. And I think... I don't know. I think that hub factor and WA, the way they sort of regulate the borders there, they're going to have to probably go in a lot of hubs, and they're going to struggle with that unless they've sort of worked out a way that's going to work really well for them. But look, there might not even be hubs. Players might be able to be a bit more free in terms of where they can go and the rules and everything, because obviously the scenario now is a bit better with less COVID cases. But yeah, I think that'll be a factor, the travel. And WA, like last year, you would have thought they'd be the team that handles the hub quite well, seeing that they're always away from home in normal seasons because they're based in WA. So that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. My slider is GWS, and I just think that they're going to finish quite low, I think, potentially lower than 14th.
Big call.
Yeah, it is a pretty big call. They lost Jai Caldwell. They lost Jeremy Cameron. They lost Williams. And that's 3 pretty good players there. And yeah, I just don't know. I don't know about them. Last year they didn't play too well. They were expected to finish in the top 8. They finished 10th, 8 wins. And yeah, I think they're going to slide. I worry for them as well because they don't have a big supporter base, and they're a team that they can fall down the tunnel and fall quite deep down that tunnel quite quickly, just because of sort of the dynamic over there. And they are sort of a younger team, even though they've got a few good experienced players. But yeah, Jeremy Cameron, he's not up forward now. So who kicks the goals? That's my question. And yeah, I think Jeremy Cameron. Yep, he's a bright light. But you need a tall forward. They've got Jeremy Finlayson, who's pretty good, but he's nowhere near Jeremy Cameron level, who averaged 1 goal a game over there. And that's what they're going to need. Yeah, are you surprised by that?
Sorry. Am I surprised by your prediction?
Mm.
No, I'm not surprised by your prediction because GWS were sort of, they had no momentum last year.
Yeah.
They were seemingly constantly being battered by the media. Like, it seemed like everyone was like, what's happened to GWS? They were in a grand final, and then Richmond seemed to have broken them the same way they broke Adelaide. But you know what?
Yeah.
I disagree. I don't think they're going to finish below 14. I think they really a good chance of making finals because they've actually got a good team, I reckon. Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they're still good. I just can't, if you reckon they're going to finish below 14th, that means you reckon they're going to finish 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. And I cannot see Hawthorn. Okay, so below 13th. And so I can't see Adelaide, North Melbourne, Essendon, Hawthorn finish above them. Sorry.
Yeah, I can see. And I was thinking for my riser to throw in Gold Coast, and I think they will rise, but they're not going to rise as much as your mighty Blue Baggers.
If you ask me, Gold Coast are going to do what GWS couldn't, which sounds strange because like it was all everyone always said, it's Gold Coast have completely messed up this whole creating a team thing in their list, whereas GWS have nailed it. But at the end, GWS haven't won a grand final yet, and Gold Coast look better than GWS right now. The amount of good players Gold Coast have in their list is unbelievable. I think if I could bet on them winning a premiership within the next 5 years, I would put a lot of money on it. I'm sure a lot of people say that about GWS, but I think Gold Coast are in even better position.
Yeah.
With Raul, with Rankin, with Ben King, like the list goes on. Anderson, they've just got so many good players. And
Absolutely.
I can see them finishing playing finals this year as well.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I can see
certainly.
everyone playing finals.
Yeah,
but
now I wanted to get to our next thing, and before we get to the premiers and our predictions there, I want to find out your surprise for 2021. Now, I'll kick it off, and I think this player isn't currently on an AFL list. He's just in the wilderness at the moment. He's found himself a place down in Richmond, next door to Richmond and next door to Collingwood. It's at Gosh's Paddock, but they're actually at Casey Fields at the moment, where there's the other ground they train out, and that's the Melbourne Demons. And the player from there, who's not on their list, his name's Majak Daw, and he is a player that was rated elite as a defender not long ago. It was probably about 2 seasons ago. And he absolutely killed it. He was a premier defender. Matthew Scarlett like he was quality. He was just dominating, taking marks down back, everything. He's a quality player, and he's a player that should be playing AFL if he's not injured and if he's fit.
You know what? I think he's better than Scarlett ever was, and probably Silvani as well combined. Majak Daw. I think he's the best fullback in the competition for sure.
Well, I don't know what to say to that. That's just putrid from you, Charlie. I think is that a bit of sarcasm? It is. And look, this is my surprise. I know you might be laughing now, but when I bring this interview back up and you're listening to this little grab, you're going to be the one that's laughed at. And I'm looking forward to it. Now, tell me your surprise.
I don't reckon it's that much of a surprise, but I'd just like to say that I think Zach Fisher's going to be an All-Australian. He's so good. He just needs to learn better how to kick on his opposite foot, and then he's going to be so good. Like, you should have seen him at the game last night. He was zipping around everywhere. Whenever he got the ball, the whole crowd, like, collectively, sort of, like, that's a bit traumatic, but it was sort of like that. When he got the ball, like, you knew something was going to happen. He's so good.
I don't know what to say about that reaction.
That
was what happened to him. Like, God, did a streaker come on and tackle his ribs, and like everyone went,
I don't know, mate. All I know is that when the Sharon got in Zach Fisher's hands, the crowd went like that, right?
They dropped their jaws.
And they breathed in the oxygen just suddenly, because magic was about to happen. And it sounds cliche, but I'm telling you, this man is so good at footy, and he can just zip around, and there's not that many players like him. Like, he's a little bit like Dan Butler, I guess. Obviously, Butler's better for now, but he's special. In terms of any other surprises, I think that what do I think that?
Just on Fisher.
Yep.
I remember watching Richmond train last year, and it was during the lockdown, and I was at home, and there wasn't much to do. So what I was doing was going. It was in between that break they had after round one and the second round, that long break where clubs were training in groups in Victoria and stuff. That was that long break. So I went and watched some clubs train, and Richmond was one of them. And Shai Bolton just did some spectacular things.
Okay.
I wrote a piece on it and on all the AFL clubs, and he was my riser. And guess what? He went on to have an unbelievable season for Richmond. Yeah.
Did you make that prediction this time last year?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, it's a good prediction because he was so good last year.
Yeah, I did. And yeah, it was quite good. But on the other side, I went and watched Collingwood train, and I was watching all the players. I take notes, trying to make pretty good predictions on what will happen. And I wrote some notes. And Josh Dacos, he was really struggling in the preseason. He was like miss hitting the ball.
This preseason?
No, the one before. He was kicking balls off the side of his boot, and they were rolling like clangers and just making these skill errors. But I didn't have a big sample size to make my judgment off. But I thought, wow, like he's really struggling here, and he was struggling in the training sessions, but he came out and had a crazy season for Collingwood, and that was it just goes to show like. That was just interesting. And I actually want to get Josh on one day and ask him, but it's probably a little bit late now. He probably can't remember that preseason. And
I doubt he can remember that one, yeah.
But
you know he probably just caught him on a bad day.
Yeah, but I went about 3 times, and
oh, really?
I think he was struggling like a couple of times, but it wasn't like crazy stuff, but it was interesting anyway. But we'll move on. And look, Premier for me is pretty straightforward. I think that Richmond will get it done. Yeah, I just think they'll get it done. They're crazy. Last year, the thing that shocked me about Richmond last year was when they when they had those off-field issues, and they came back from that. That happened mid-season. They came back and they did well. And then they ended up winning the premiership. They've had a lot of off-field issues, and that it wasn't just that one with that Coleman Jones and Sydney stack. But obviously what's happened with Damien Hardwick, like they've had all these interruptions off field, but they've still managed to do so well on field. That's quite remarkable. So after that, I was just like, what's going to stop Richmond? Like the only thing that's going to stop them is aging. And that hasn't hit them yet. That's still a few seasons away. And that's my final answer. They're my premiers for this year, and I hope they don't dominate because it's going to be a bit of a boring season in a way if they dominate. But that's my riser, and that's my premier. Sorry, and hopefully teams like Port Adelaide push them a little bit, and hopefully Port, push them and beat them a few times. That'd make it entertaining. But Richmond, in my eyes, I just can't see them being beaten too often in 2021. Who's your premiership predictor?
What is it? Did you hear that? Da 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 da.
No.
Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
No chance. You cannot be.
Yeah,
serious.
I'm predicting Richmond as well.
That's done. Is there
I don't
anything
want
you
to
wanna
say
add?
Richmond. But it's like you have to say Richmond. If not Richmond, then I'm gonna go with Port. But it's like you got to say Richmond, unfortunately.
How? If you had $1,000, how much of it would you be putting on Richmond to win?
Well, I do have $1,000. And I'm not betting.
If you had to, sorry.
So
if you had to,
that's the answer.
if you had to put the
Not
money.
I would probably what would I put if I had if you gave me $1,000 and I had to bet some of it on Richmond, I'd bet. See, this doesn't work. I'd probably just keep the money. I'd probably put $1 on Richmond and keep $999
No, you've got to
myself.
spend it all. You've got to spend all of the 1,000.
Then I'd bet 1,000 on them.
You would? Okay. So you're very
If
confident.
if I've got to spend it all, then I would.
No, but you can also put it on other teams.
Oh, right. Okay, that's good. That's a good question. I put 400 on them.
You put 300
That's actually a good
on.
question. That's a good question, actually. I've never heard that question before.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say.
there you go.
Look, I reckon. Anyway,
I put 300.
That's a tricky question. There's a lot of finances involved there, and like you got to get the calculator out for that. And you probably don't have the time. But Charlie, look, is there anything else you'd like to add on 2021?
I'm just looking forward to footy. I was at Etihad Stadium, the Telstra Dome last night. And it was so good, even there, not at the MCG, even at Dockland Stadium, to just see footy and see my boys run out there again. It just put a smile on my face. Yeah. And I just can't wait to be back watching football. And hopefully before we know it, it'll be back to full crowds, full capacity. And the MCG will be back to normal. But you know what? For now, 50,000, I'm happy with that because it's a lot better than what we had last year.
Absolutely. And, I'm looking forward to getting my photo with the COVID vaccine. That famous photo that everyone's been getting. I'm looking forward to that moment, putting it on social media, and then hopefully I'm able to travel anywhere I want. That was a bit of a side note. It was supposed to be funny, but it didn't really work.
That's okay.
All right. That wraps us up, Charlie. Thanks for joining us on the Sports Hour. Much appreciated. And I'm looking forward to chatting again this time next week.
I always look forward to it. So once again, thanks for having me on, Max. And to all our listeners, our faithful listeners, have a good one.
It is that time in the show where we welcome personal trainer, nutrition coach, Connor Kennedy. How you going today, Connor?
Very, very well, as always. Thanks, Max. Thanks for having me on.
And this week we've got you on to talk a little bit about sleep. and some of the different aspects to it, and all about it. So we'll kick it off. Tell me what you think about sleep and probably how important it is for us as human beings.
Oh, of course, sleep is, as any good person knows, it's the most important thing that you can do for your body. Sleep is how your body resets, regenerates itself. It's how you repair muscle tissue. It's how you get back brain function. It's how everything in your body heals itself back up after a tough, tiring day at the office or in the gym or on the sports field. Whatever you're doing, whoever you are in your life, no matter what you do in your day, sleep is always going to be important. Funny thing, actually, you might have heard some people say the more sleep you get, the rewards actually start diminishing, and there's a higher risk of death with the more sleep you get if you get too much sleep per night. But the interesting thing is, in those studies that they've looked at, people who get too much sleep, like, we're talking 10, 12 hours plus a night, those people have a higher risk of death already because of their illnesses, and they need more sleep because of their illnesses. So those studies are actually not correct. So getting as much sleep as you can is always beneficial, is my point. Now, that being said, I don't recommend getting 10 to 12 hours a night, because we need time in our day too to accomplish all the things we want to accomplish. But I definitely recommend getting at least 8 hours a night.
So it's 8 hours that's recommended. Is that is that what you actually recommend? Like, I've heard rumors of 7 hours for adults. What are your thoughts in terms of how many hours we should be getting?
Look, it's an interesting topic. I know for certain that kids need more than that. Young kids, they need at least 10 hours a night. Even teenagers, they should be aiming for at least 9 to 10 hours per night. Now, full-grown adults, I would recommend 8 hours plus per night. Some people just get away with 6. And my dad, he sleeps 4 to 5 hours a night, and he's been doing that for 30 years plus. That's just the way he lives, and somehow he functions on it. Now, he'd probably have a better quality of life if he slept more, but that's just him. So, some people have different hours they like to sleep. Some people sleep more, but you have to find the point at which you have enough hours in your day to use productively, but you're also getting enough sleep so that you can be productive in those hours. So it's finding that middle point between not getting too much sleep where you're losing valuable time in your day, and getting enough sleep where your body can reset and regenerate itself. So for me, look, I always try to get 8 hours a day. Some people who are just ridiculously busy businessmen and that sort of thing, they can probably get away with 7 hours because they really need that extra hour in the day. So you've just got to find what works with your life.
Yeah, it's interesting how some people can function and do everything with only 4 or 5 hours sleep. I know a few people that are sleeping those sorts of hours, and it's strange how they can sort of function on that amount of sleep, and that sort of contradicts the argument that adults should be getting 8 hours sleep. But why are you still selling to us that we should be getting that amount of sleep? Ultimately, is that just the best recommendation, and that's how you're going to maximize sort of your health from it?
Look, yeah, that's right. So, people can function on that amount of sleep. We've all had all-nighters before. We've all had nights or a few nights in a row where we haven't gotten 8 hours sleep, and that's fine. But I believe there's actually been studies to show that consistently getting less than 7 or 8 hours sleep a few nights in the row significantly increases your chance of illness and injury, and decreases your life expectancy. So those people can function 4 to 5 hours a night, for 50 years, for all of their life. Sure, they can get by, but their quality of life will not be nearly as good as it would be if they were getting a couple hours sleep more per night. You know, they'd feel happier during the day. They'd have more energy, not just physically but mentally. So they'd be able to crush their exercise, whatever they're doing, more, and they'd also be able to concentrate better on the work that they're doing. So yes, they can function 4 to 5 hours. There's no debate about that. You know, you can get by as a human being. I think their long-term risk of illness goes up. I think their life expectancy goes down, and I think their performance in the day and their energy levels go down as a result of that.
Yeah, it's I agree with you. I just the reason why I sort of asked that question was because I find it quite amazing how people actually manage to get through a day quite well with that amount of sleep. And it's one of those things. It's just quite strange, but obviously getting that extra sleep will have its benefits from doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we move on, I will say as well, you know, they can get through the day, but the people I know who consistently get that amount of sleep, they're pretty stressed people. You know, they're not using all of their time productively. You know, they have 18 hours in a day, which is a lot. I guarantee you they could be a bit more productive, and they'd actually get more done in the day if they just slept an extra 2 hours. Then they'd have two less hours in the day, but they'd be so much more productive in that time. They'd feel better. They'd feel happier. So, you know, you can do it, but at what cost? You know, you want to be happy as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds spot on. Now, I have nights where, and not nights, but probably just periods of time where I'm sleeping later than what I'd normally like to because of the distractions. And it's mainly those distractions, these phones, which kill people's sleep, really. What's your advice? You know, obviously a lot of people have to get up earlier in the morning to get to their commitment, their jobs, their schooling, anything else, maybe go for a walk or who knows, a meeting or whatever. What are your tips for making sure we're getting those 8 hours in, so we're maximizing everything from our health perspective?
So my biggest advice on this is get into a routine. I'm actually one of those people. I have to wake up at 5 a.m. right now for work in the morning every day. And well, I don't have that every day, but what I've set for myself is that I'll wake up at 5 a.m. every day. And that way I can consistently get to bed early enough so that I can get 8 hours. So I'll be asleep by 9 p.m., you know, and it comes with its costs. Obviously, you know, there's things that happen later than 9 p.m. and it's hard to get to bed at that time. But if you build it into a routine over a couple of months, your body gets used to it. You reset your body clock. And so you can find that it actually does take a couple of months to build into this. But once you do, it's such a good feeling because you can set your body clock to any time you want. You know, I'll start getting tired before 9 p.m. And now when I hit the sack at that time, I can get to sleep when I want to. But other people that I know, you know, who go to sleep at maybe 11 every night, they definitely couldn't get to sleep and get 8 hours sleep waking up at 5 a.m. unless they've built it into a routine. So my point is, find your time that you need to wake up every morning, stick to it, you know, wake up at that time every single morning. And even if that means you get no sleep for a couple of nights or much less sleep for a couple of nights, it's going to be better for you in the long run because you'll be tired for a couple of days. That means you'll be able to get to bed earlier. You'll be able to get into that healthy sleep routine. And I can't explain exactly what it is, but you know the feeling when you're in a great routine, a great sleep routine, you just feel great. It's productive. You can get to sleep quickly. You wake up and feel energized. You know, I often wake up a couple minutes right before my alarm because my body just knows now's the time, we're ready for the day. And I feel great when waking up. So that's my biggest tip on how to do that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. What was I going to say? Oh, the fatigue. You know, and being, you know, so many people. I'm tired. You know, it gets to 2 o'clock in the day and they start to feel tired. It happens to me countless times. And having those days where you're feeling energetic, everyone has those days. They're feeling energetic. They want to do something. They want to go for a walk, go for a run. If we can be feeling that for the majority of the day, what a positive it is, and what a positive impact it can make on your life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, like when you get into a consistent sleep routine, you stop getting tired throughout the day. You get tired just before bed because your body knows. You know, when you have such an up and down sleep schedule, it's changing every single day. Your body doesn't know what to do. You're not telling your body what to do. You know, we have to tell our body what to do. And when we do that, it knows and it'll reward us. We won't get tired through the day. We'll have more energy. You know, I feel great all day, every day because I eat well, I sleep well, you know, I exercise. So when we do those things, we tell our body when it's time to wake up, when it's time to sleep, and it helps in all areas of our life.
Absolutely. And you mentioned there eating and exercising, and that's two things that we'll touch on later on, potentially in the next few weeks, Connor. So really looking forward to speaking about those aspects of our health. And it's been great getting you on in the previous shows, talking a little bit about cold showers. And in the first week, we spoke a bit about breathing. And today, obviously,
Absolutely.
sleep. So, Connor Kennedy, it's a pleasure to have you on. And thanks very much. It's great to get your perspective as a personal trainer and nutrition coach. So thanks for joining us again on the Sports Hour.
No worries at all. I'm looking forward to the coming weeks. Thanks, Max. There's
been plenty happening in the world of cricket, as well as different other sports as well, looking across the world. And there's no better man to welcome to the show than freelance writer Patrick Morrow. How you going today, Patrick?
Very good, Max. Absolute pleasure to be back on again. It's a lot of big sporting news of the week, and let's get into it.
Absolutely. And we'll kick it off today talking a little bit about the series between India and England. How have you seen that one play out so far? This is the fourth test of that series. And it's pretty even to start off that test match.
Yeah, it's a very even first day. England were bowled out for 205. Ben Stokes top scored with 56. There was a bit of fire in the match early on. A few words being talked about from Kohli to Stokes, so they were having a go at each other. Apparently it was over a joke that might have been misconstrued for something else. So it was quite funny there. And then India in reply, they bowled them out for 205, and Joe Root was quite disappointed with the batting performance, said they could have batted much better. Apparently the pitch wasn't as turning sharply as it was in the day-night test. And then India in reply, 1 for 25 with Jimmy Anderson winding back the clock and getting a wicket late on day one to have England in a pretty even position. Even though India, it looks like it's going to be a dominant game of cricket for India. They're ahead of the game in a way. They've bowled out the team and now they've got to bat today, probably bat day 3 as well, and try and make a big lead. It's the goal for them. And hopefully Kohli gets amongst the runs because he hasn't been amongst the runs for a while. So you'll probably want to keep that up to keep the doubters wrong, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should have mentioned, India's leading that series 2-1. We're in the last test. It's a 4 test match series. And England have to win this test in order to draw the series. The show is going to be on live on Monday. Who do you think will win? By the time we get to Monday, the game will be over and we'll know whether the series is drawn or whether India take the lead 3-1 to end the whole test match series. What are your thoughts now? The scores, India are 1 for 34 in reply to England, who made 205 in the first innings. So what do you think? India trail by 171 runs at the moment in the first innings, 1 wicket down. Who do you reckon will take out this series?
I think it'll be India just because they'll have better class and better skill with the ball, especially later on in the second innings and day 4 and 5. I think they're just better suited for it. I don't think England know how to play spinning pitches. Same as most of the countries that don't play on subcontinental pitches. They struggle with the batting, and at the same time, the pitch plays different tricks later on day 3 and day 4 and 5. So I'll be hoping England do win because, as you do know, Max, the Australia need England to win so we can play in the Test Championship against New Zealand at Lords in July, which is meant to happen, barring COVID. So we kind of want England to win, but I think India is just going to do the job and probably do it quite comfortably. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in innings. I would not be surprised if India make a massive total and England can't chase it down. So that's my bet, and hopefully I'm right. But hopefully I'm not right because I want Australia to win, of course. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think our eyes will be peeled to the screens on Sunday night watching that into that test match. It'll be day 4 on Sunday. So, you know what? It could go to a day 5 and end late in the test match. So the show could still be running as the test match is happening. But it's looking like it's not going to last 5 days, and it's going to be an interesting finish, certainly. And going to another game now, which was between West Indies and Sri Lanka. They're playing in a T20 series. And there's been some interesting things happening in that game. They had their first game where the West Indies won. And they've got 20s to play in total. And that will take place tomorrow and on Monday. But yeah, do you want to talk us through what happened in that first T20? There was a few interesting things that went on in that game.
Yeah, Kieran Pollard went crazy, hit 39 off 11 balls, included 6 sixes off a bowler who, I can't say his name, unfortunately, I've forgotten it. He got a hat-trick, this bowler, beforehand.
Yeah.
We'll say this, that he got hit for 6 sixes and took a hat-trick. So not a bit of a weird old day for him. But Sri Lanka, in reply, were never in the contest. West Indies were just a bit better. Chris Gale even come out to play. So they're calling up everyone out of nowhere today, Max, and it's a bit weird and odd what's going on in the Windies. They like to do this. They like to bring all the old players back for these T20 matches. As we've seen before, the West Indies are T20 specialists and know how to do it. Sri Lanka, the side's pretty weak. No one there that's really notable in terms of T20 experience. A few, maybe Dick Weller, maybe, but a lot of them have really just coming off, a few red ball games that were played against. They played against Bangladesh, and the likes of that as well, and against England as well. So they haven't really come off a lot of the T20 stuff. And the Windies, on the other hand, they've come off a tour of Bangladesh as well. So they haven't played a lot of the white ball, shorter format of the game, more one-day format. So it's an interesting little series. I think they conclude with a one-day series as well. So it's good to see them playing cricket in the Caribbean still. But yeah.
Yeah. And I'll give it a crack. The Sri Lankan player who took the hat-trick and then in the following over was hit for 6 sixes by Kieran Pollard, as you said, Patrick. Quite amazing that. But in the previous over, he took a hat-trick, and that player, his name is Akila Dhanajana. Now, that's my attempt to pronunciate that. I don't know if that... Yeah, and Kieran Pollard, he became just the 3rd man in international cricket to hit 6 sixes in an over. So that's quite remarkable to do that at international level. You saw Carlos Brathwaite, he hit those sixes off Ben Stokes. I think he got maybe a couple in a row away then in a World Cup final. But 6 sixes in an over, that's pretty crazy. And what a whirlwind for the Sri Lankan bowler from taking a hat-trick to getting hit for 6 sixes.
Very quick succession. So what was more odd was the celebrations by Pollard. I think he walked a square leg and took a bow like something like out of a movie. So quite funny. So just a shame there was no crowd to see it as well, Max. Would have been nice, but that's how it rolls at the moment.
Absolutely. That would have been great to have a crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the times we're in, we can't have that. But there was also another interesting sort of gesture that happened to a visiting nation coming to Australia in rugby. Do you want to talk us through how that played out? And it was quite nice from the visiting country to do this act.
Yeah, so a Fijian side who are going to be playing in the equivalent of the VFL, the New South Wales rugby competition, we're in hotel quarantine for the past 2 weeks. As we know, the rugby league season starts in about a week's time across Australia as it all matches up with the NRL. So the grade competition starts, I think, next week, and the Fijian side were in hotel quarantine. This is the first time ever they're going to have 2 Pacific nations playing, one in the New South Wales and the Queensland competition. So the Papua New Guinean team are going to play in the Queensland comp, and the Fijian team are going to play in the New South Wales competition, sorry. And the Fijian team, after they'd done their 14 days of quarantine, as they were leaving, they decided to break into a song, and they sung the song in much gusto and passion that was quite, give you the chills on the spine. They've got amazing voices and quite spectacular for a rugby team to sing that so proudly. So they sung the song quite well to say thank you to all the quarantine workers. So that's well done to them, and hats off to them. That's a great show of sportsmanship. I think it needs to be a bit of, look at that from footy clubs and sporting clubs alike around the world to kind of, do some gesture of that type. I know, and I think that's just amazing that they would be able to do that. And good luck to that team, and we'll be barracking hard for them.
Yeah, absolutely. For them to sort of be that respectful, that's very good on them for doing that. And yeah, that's something that's great to see in sport. They get treated so well in most cases, and it's great when you see them sort of give that back in return and treat the others around them well, who have helped them along the way. So. Absolutely, that was great to see from the Fijian rugby team doing that to the hotel quarantine workers and the hotel there in Sydney. So that was brilliant. Now, there's also been another series happening in the world of cricket, and that's between New Zealand and Australia. There's been some interruption in that series with, I think it was Auckland. They went into lockdown and they couldn't have a crowd, and then they had to play with no crowds in the stadium, which was quite bizarre, but not really bizarre anymore. We've seen it enough times to sort of be used to it. But in that series, Australia won the 3rd game, so they trailed by 1. New Zealand are leading the series 2-1 with 2 games remaining, 2 T20s. So that's going to be interesting. The game is obviously on Friday and Sunday. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Aaron Finch, wasn't it great to see him back in the runs as captain of the short form cricket in Australia, T20s and ODIs? That was brilliant. He hit 69 of 44 balls. Quite remarkable, as well as Philippi hitting 43 of 27 in his, 3rd game of international cricket. That's pretty exceptional. But what are you thinking how this series will play out? Do you reckon Australia are capable of taking away the chocolates and winning the next 2 and getting up 3-2 in that series? What do you reckon, Patrick?
I'd say it's going to be a close one. I think there's fine margins between our side and them. As I've said before, I think New Zealand's team's quite strong, and we can get them on a night like we did in Wellington only a couple of days ago. You could probably do the same thing again. Aaron Finch finally got back into some form, which is great. He got very lucky as well. Could have been LB, very, very close on, and that was a judged umpire's call, so got away with that one there. And then from there, looked really good with the bat, and he wasn't his usual best, but got away with it. And I think that's the innings he needs to build on his T20 career. I think he's had so much speculation on his technique and the way he bats, so it's great to see him back in the runs. As well, Ashton Agar, someone who I think probably should have been dropped for that third T20. Really put a great performance in, taking 6 for 30. Will he do that again? I don't think he will. But, if he can take a few wickets there and slow the economy rate down and the run rate down and get a few runs, even if it's 20 or 15 or 10, that'd be great for him. Josh Felipe, same thing, a really good cricketer. He'll probably be in the side for a while, and I think they need to look at, as I'm saying, they're going to look at that one-player format player, and he probably is the one to, develop into more of a T20 player. It'll be good to see how we go. Hopefully we do win. It'd be a great effort if we could win the series with the side we've got on a very strong side. But at the same time, I think New Zealand just might be able to find the class with the likes of Wilson, Guptill, Southey, Bolt. The likes of them who have been around the traps for a long time know what to do. The last 2 games are played in Wellington, so on the cake tin there, so no crowd, makes it a little bit weird. I think New Zealand want a crowd there because just some momentum, and also to do with the fact that the crowd gives them a massive hype, and it's very interesting. But New Zealand crowd gives a lot more applause to the home side than we do, as I can say. So it's quite interesting how they go about it. I think probably New Zealand will win the series. It'll be a close one. I wouldn't be surprised if we have one. I'm hoping one of them go to a super over, so I'm going to predict that now. I've got a feeling the last T20 might go to a super over. I've got a funny, sneaky suspicion that might happen. So
Wow.
I think New Zealand just on the last ball of the super over. Maybe I've got a feeling game 4. I think Australia might do the win again, and then New Zealand might win the last match on a super over. I just got this funny feeling.
Well, it's great to hear that prediction, and I'll tell you what, if it comes true, that'll be quite amazing. And look, I wanted to ask you, how much of an influence do you reckon how much of an effect or influence or how much of an impact do you think home ground advantage has on these games? Like, what's the advantage for New Zealand playing at home here? Do you reckon they benefit from it quite a bit, or do you reckon it's just an even playing field almost?
I think they benefit from a bit. The match was played at Dunedin before the COVID restrictions were put in. The Uni Oval there, the crowd was pretty much on their team all day. I think the second last over sums it up. Bolt had to bowl that second last over and bowled it immaculately well. Even though he got hit for 10, he actually bowled really well. Let's just say the crowd were giving him a massive round of applause and getting the crowd influence maybe that last over with Neesham coming to bowl as well. So, probably New Zealand missed that on Wednesday night in Wellington because there was just no crowd. Cape Tin is a place where you'd want a crowd because it's pretty dull. It's a bit like Marvel. It doesn't have the atmosphere that the MCG can create with 20,000 or even no fans, So it still has some form of atmosphere, even though it might have 0 fans. So it needs to have. I think the Cape Tin probably isn't the New Zealand's advantage because there's no crowd, so they don't get that. They don't. There's just this big empty hole in a way. So also it'll be interesting to see how Australia go tonight. There'll be a better judgment with no fans again. So. Probably that might play into our hands a bit, but we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on there. There is a bit of an advantage, but without the crowd, it helps Australia. Not a lot. Obviously, it'll still help New Zealand, and they'll probably have a little bit more of an advantage because they're at home. But I don't think the advantage is there as much when there's no crowd, but certainly when that crowd comes, as you said, that crowd can influence the game a fair bit. But Patrick, it's a pleasure to get your thoughts again, and I thank you once again for coming onto the Sports Hour and giving us all your views and opinions and thoughts on what's happening in the world of sport. So thanks very much, Patrick Morrow.
Yeah, thank you very much, Max. Absolute pleasure to be on again. Cheers, man.
And that wraps up our show for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. We had a bit of AFL football there from Charlie Gill. Also got Patrick Morrow on to talk a little bit about the cricket, and also Connor Kennedy, who spoke a little bit about the importance of sleep. So that rounds out the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in once again. And as always, feel free to jump on our social media pages at Sports Hour FM on our Twitter page. You can also find Live FM Making Media, which is on Twitter and Facebook, and also the BRIMBANK Neighbourhood House page on Facebook, where you can find the show as a podcast. But thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful week. You're listening to the Sports Hour on BRIMBANK Live on Live FM.
With thanks to the City of BRIMBANK across our neighbourhood and the world, the Sports Hour with Max Hatzoglou on BRIMBANK Live on Live FM.